The purpose of this meeting is to inform our parents, staff, and constituents about the work aligned with the Growing Together initiative. The interpreters for tonight are Martha Romo Igirles and Marty Ramirez. Thank you all for taking the time to join us. We're going to go ahead and get started with our public hearing. We have a quick review of the public comment rules. When you come up to the podium, please state your name. If you're speaking for an organization, please state your name and the name of the organization. Second, our speakers are asked to present their comments within 3 minutes. When the yellow light comes on, you will have 1 minute left to start winding up your remarks. When the red light comes on, it will beep and it indicates that your time is up. Complaints about named staff, students, or parents should not be voiced in this session. However, we are very interested in hearing your concerns with regard to public education, safety of students, or to the operation of the school system. Board members will listen carefully and consider your comments, but we do not engage in a discussion with our speakers. So, this administration, did you all have any presentation this evening, or are we just going to get started with our public comment? All right. So I will read out the names of folks who are here for public comment. I'll read a couple of names at a time so you can come over and stand in the queue. We want to first say thank you all for coming to share with us your thoughts and opinions on the Growing Together initiative. This work began almost over 2 years ago as we started to look at boundary lines and how do we make sure that we create school and student assignments that are equitable and create the schools and that we want to see. So I will get us started with Arton Ragsdale. And then the next person will be Mike Silver. After that, we'll have Aaron Miller. Mr. Ragsdale, if you can, there's a microphone there. There's a button on it. If you can press it, yep, and you should see a green.
Hello.
There you go.
Hi.
Awesome.
My name is Arton Ragsdale. I'm a father of a 5th and 2nd grader at Lakewood Elementary. Nice to see you all this evening. I'd like to start by thanking you all for your leadership in this difficult time. I know it's been tough, been a lot of uncertainty, but you guys have done a great job and I appreciate that. It's been a difficult time for everyone. And I think one thing that's been severely lacking in all of our lives is stability and predictability. Our schools are full of children who haven't had a normal school experience in years, some that have never experienced a normal school year. And so I'm here to advocate for careful consideration of how any plans of the future impact our current students today. I'm here to encourage all of you to make decisions based on sympathy, sensitivity, compassion. Keep in mind that many of the children are 2 or 3 years behind in their development. What these kids really need right now is that stability and predictability, and we need to make that a top priority. So if a family is established and happy at their current school, don't uproot them and force them to start the entire process all over, building community, et cetera, getting to know their teachers. Let's carefully consider disruptions to existing school programs, particularly at our neighborhood schools. In the 6 years my 5th grader has been at Lakewood, we've seen a lot of change. We had 6 different principals, if you include interim appointments. We thought we had a long-term principal, but he was reassigned halfway through the school year this year. In fact, we've had 4 principals this school year alone. We've had to fight a state takeover from the ISD. We've been designated a restart school. In response, we implemented a community school model, conducted a comprehensive assets and needs assessment. Based on that assessment, we implemented a number of initiatives, the most significant of which was starting a dual language immersion program, which my 2nd grader is in the first cohort of. When we started the program, we were asked to trust the process, commit for 6 years, and I consider that a two-way commitment on behalf of DPS and my children. Over the last 3 years, we've witnessed an incredible amount of passion and work going into making this program a success, despite all the obstacles caused by remote school, learning a language while masked, et cetera. And now that it's finally starting to feel established and settled, to hear that it might be dismantled is incredibly disheartening. Please don't destroy the things we've been building at our school. It's disrespectful to all the people who have poured their heart and soul into building them. If you want additional programs, then start new ones, but follow through on existing initiatives. Killing one successful program specifically chosen to serve our community to start another from scratch based on some nebulous criteria is incredibly inefficient and unconscionable. If you really want to expand access to special programs, add them to neighborhood schools, give them funding that the magnet schools get, and yeah, et cetera. Thank you for your time. but I'll submit these in form of email as well.
Thank you. Next, Mike Silver, Aaron Miller will be next, and then Kristin Mead.
All right, do I hit the green button? Hello, Chair Umstead. Hello, all. Ms. Umstead, specifically, you as chair, on your website, you advocated that you believe in writing and advocating for policies, procedures, and practices that will create the environment for all students to succeed. When we talk about Lakewood Elementary and the idea that we are going to remove the Spanish immersion program, that does not meet your goals. That does not meet your vision. And any board member or board member elect in this room that thinks that removing Spanish immersion from Lakewood meets that needs is sadly mistaken. The stats and studies are clear, and I think this is where the board has fallen short. If you look at the stats about Spanish immersion, they will tell you you have to complete the program. Spanish starts strong, English starts weak. Then English builds up, the Spanish stays up, and the kids complete the whole point of time. This program is only 3 years old. Not only is it 3 years old, these kids left school in person in March. The oldest class of Spanish immersion is only in second grade. So when they were in kindergarten, the first year of the program, they were out in March for COVID. First grade last year, out for COVID, in-person instruction. In an immersive program, they're not in the classroom. This is their first actual year getting in-person instruction for an entire year. And now the school board is saying in 2 years, you're going to be out. So the promise of stick with the program, trust the process, these kids will be better for it. What you've basically done is harmed them both in Spanish and now in English. Because with the Spanish immersion program, with them being remote for this amount of time, and then ending them early, you've hurt these child. This is not in the best interest of these children. Then when you talk about Lakewood Elementary, a school that is 50% Hispanic, the idea that we're going to take Spanish immersion services and programs from them is not in the best interest of those children. And in my last 50 seconds, I want to talk to you. I just moved to Durham in March. And when I'm there, I'm doing community programs. I walk to school for curriculum night. What did I see? Hispanic kids, Black kids walking after school, 5:30, 6 o'clock, to engage with Miss Miles, to engage in these programs. When you ask these kids to have to bus to Southwest, what you are going to ask them, you're asking their parents to drive them. You're going to take our tardy list, and the principal can tell you to you. You can get the data at a later date. Take that tardy list, turn them into absences. You are harming the children in our low income and impacted areas. If you believe in diversity, if you believe in inclusiveness, if you believe in actually helping the education of our children in my public schools, I grew up here in Durham, K through 12, you will keep the Spanish immersion program at Lakewood Elementary. That is my time. Thank you all.
Next, we have Aaron Miller, Ali Kofi, and Kristin Mead.
Hello, I'm Erin Collazo Miller. I have a first grader and second grader at Lakewood Elementary and a sixth grader who was at Lakewood Elementary before. And for the past several years, I have told everyone I know that the most vibrant, inclusive community I'm a part of is my community school. When we go to community, when we go to any event at the school, there's often 100 parents there and the families look like the school. There's always translation, not just English to Spanish, but often I'm looking at a slide in Spanish and it's being translated to me in English. We fight for language justice. There's always foods that represent all the cultures because we believe in being an inclusive environment. And that is why Lakewood had this amazing turnaround. I believe that the dual language program is good for the Spanish speaking kids at this school because it allows them to learn in their native language. We have 51% native Spanish speakers. Rather, if you want magnet programs, that's fine. If you want to add some magnet programs, that's fine. But I think every school in Durham that has a majority Spanish speaking families should have the opportunity for their children to be able to be educated in Spanish first. And even for the children who are not in the dual language program, that means we have 6 native Spanish speakers as teachers when you have a dual language program. There is always someone who Spanish speaking families can talk with in the school. It's just a much more inclusive environment for all families in a way that reflects this particular neighborhood. Please don't bus our children say that there's an opportunity to bus them to a different magnet program. We believe in our community. We like to run into each other when we're walking to and from school, when we're coming to community events. I believe in the goals of making magnet programs equitable, which is what I've heard over and over from the Engage Durham folks. But honestly, I didn't know it was a process that I needed to engage with because I don't really believe in magnets. I think the future of schools is community schools. I think we should invest more in the community schools program. Every neighborhood in Durham has inherent strengths and particular needs. And the community school program engages all the stakeholders in the community, parents, teachers, staff, students, and the businesses in the community in order to create schools that reflect that particular community's needs. And so I would ask that you please not vote on this plan until Engage Durham provides you a plan for what will happen to the neighborhood schools. Right now, they're saying, trust us. We're not sure what will happen with your dual language students, but trust us, we'll come up with a plan. We're not sure, Hope Valley, what will happen to your students when it becomes year round, but trust us, we'll come up with a plan. Please force them to give you a plan for legacy students where boundaries are changing, where programs are being taken away before you approve any programming. Thank you.
Hello, can you guys hear me? Cool. My name is Ollie Cuffey. My son is Cash Cuffey. He's in the 2nd grade in the dual language program. And I'm actually the president of the PTA for Lakewood Elementary. For me, I feel like a lot of the information that I guess you say you decide that you collected to decide to go into this route, I feel like a lot of us wasn't really privy to this information. I would like to see if we can get maybe the data that actually lends the idea that removing the programs from the school actually makes sense. For us, I know like we started in pre-K, for us being out of district, it was a very hard task for us to actually get into dual language class. And with this being moved, I fear that when his 5th grade comes up, we won't even get into the program because the line for the program more than likely will be long. Everybody's gonna be trying to jock in to get into the program. And I feel like the way it already is, we could just add more. And if there's any data that shows that adding another program to another school hinders the children, because it seems like they want to add more access, but taking away one to add it somewhere else doesn't really add more access. It will stay the same. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Kristin Mead, Marianne Simpson, and Brianna Breaux.
Hello, my name is Kristin Mead, and I'm going to continue the theme so far tonight. I am a mother of a current 2nd grader at Lakewood Elementary School. My son was one of the students in the inaugural dual language immersion program that started at Lakewood 3 years ago. When the 24-25 school year arrives, he will be a rising 5th grader and risks losing access to a program that we committed to and has been valuable to his education. I want to start by saying that I believe in the goals of this redistricting plan and the values that underlie the decisions, and I appreciate the necessity of making some hard and sometimes painful decisions. And while I realize that this first vote is about the higher level redistricting maps and not the specific programs, it is critical that we think through some of the implications of these decisions now. As another mother recently said, the devil is in the details, and this redistricting plan will only be a success if we anticipate both the positive and negative impacts of these decisions from the onset. The potential removal of a thriving dual language program at Lakewood is one such detail. One explicit goal of this redistricting plan is improved equity, and it is my opinion that equity is best exemplified by an investment in our neighborhood schools, where traditionally those students of less means and less privilege are more likely to go. Increasing access to application schools and consolidating special programs within these schools risks inadvertently decreasing equity if we are not thoughtful and proactive in providing reasons for students, both those of means and those without, to stay and thrive within their neighborhood schools. We risk worsening equity if we do not continue to invest in our neighborhood schools that serve the specific and diverse needs of the entire local community. The dual language program at Lakewood is one of the many innovative programs that has helped to create and maintain such a thriving neighborhood school. A school we must not forget was almost taken over by the state just a handful of years ago. Lakewood's recent successes are shining examples of what DPS can do with innovation, creativity, leadership, and investment in our community schools. I believe wholeheartedly in the benefits of dual language and feel that it is a win-win-win for our communities. As such, I love the redistricting plan's goal of increasing access to these programs throughout DPS so that more children can benefit. However, as this model is implemented, I would strongly advocate for an addition to model, not an instead of model. Expanding access to dual language must be done in a way that does not inadvertently harm the existing neighborhood schools. For this reason, I would not advocate more strongly for maintaining existing programs, such as the one at Lakewood, and leaving open the option of creating new programs within our neighborhood schools in the future. Removing Lakewood's DLI program would ultimately, thank you for your time.
Marianne Simpson, Brianna Breaux, and Josh Grossman. And I will also add, for folks who have comments, you can also email the Board of Education if you're not able to finish that comment, boe@dpsnc.net. Thank you.
I'm Marianne, Dr. Marianne Simpson. I am a longtime resident of the Lakewood neighborhood. My PhD was in education. I'm a number crunching egghead most days, but sometimes a policy issue just comes up and grabs you. I'm deeply concerned about the potential loss of the dual language immersion program from Lakewood Elementary. As other speakers have said tonight, the population of Lakewood Elementary School is over 50% native Spanish speaking. Why take a program from where the students are and put it in a school where the students are not? We know that DLI programs work. These programs are associated with better educational outcomes, especially for Spanish-speaking children. I am also concerned at the possibility of moving the DLI program from a poorer neighborhood and putting it in a wealthier one. There is some concern with the gentrification of dual language programs. So that's a bit of a concern to me. Most importantly, I don't think we should add any more burdens to our Hispanic neighbors. They work hard enough already, multiple jobs. The additional costs and time and fuel to try to get the kids to another school for something that was available on site is quite a burden. And I mean, I don't think very many of us can empathize with what it's like to not have money and not having the means to provide for your kids is really, really rough. Finally, I had heard that one of the reasons this program was started was to improve relations with the Hispanic community. Yanking the DLI program from Lakewood Elementary doesn't seem like a good move in that direction. So thank you for this opportunity to talk to you tonight.
Hi, my name is Brianna Breaux. I'm a Lakewood parent. I have a fourth grader and who's not in the dual language program and a first grader who is. And I first want to offer appreciation for the hard work that has gone into this plan. It is clear that there's been a lot of intention and it is a complex and really important process that's being undertaken here. And I appreciate the intention and I agree with a lot of the goals of the plan, especially around equity and, you know, making sure that programs are available that are geographically close to kids. I also just echo a lot of what's been said, and I don't want to repeat so much of things that have been said, but I agree with what the parents have been getting up here and saying specifically about the program at Lakewood, especially the last person who spoke talking about the relations with Spanish speaking members of our community. I've found that being a parent in the program has given me the opportunity to build relationships that I wouldn't have been able to build without that. And I feel like that's an important thing that we should also be considering in this process. And certainly my kids have relationships with other kids that I think they wouldn't have if they weren't in a dual language program. I also just really wanted to talk about the process, the information that's out there about this plan and the transparency and the ability for people to engage. It's obvious that there's been a lot of work put into that, and I appreciate that. I think that's really important, but I think that perhaps the mark has been missed a bit on the impact of how that's actually worked out. I've been talking to a lot of families at the school, and really folks were pretty surprised to hear that this was even happening, which to me says that as hard as work has been done to try to make this information public, it hasn't been getting to people. And especially Spanish speaking families, there's a website that is in Spanish, but there's no way to comment in Spanish on the website, while there is a way to comment on the English speaking website. I think that's a problem. And also just getting the information out to let people know to go to the website and understand what's on it is not there. The last thing I wanted to say is that the proposal overall feels to me centered on families who want magnet programs. I think increasing access equitably to magnet programs is great and fine, but I would like to know how this plan is going to help neighborhood schools to have the resources and programming and flexibility to provide the programs that their communities need. And I think the DLI program at Lakewood is a great example of that. So that's all. Thanks.
There should be one out in the hallway. If not, we can add you at the end of our list. So Josh Grossman is next, Jesse Brannerman, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name. And then Debbie Swain will be the next speaker.
Hey, my name is Josh Grossman. I've got a daughter at Lakewood in the dual language program in first grade. I've got a son who's going to be coming up in the kindergarten in a couple of years, and I got another daughter. So we've got 3 moving up through the ranks. And frankly, when we moved to the area, our realtor even told us honestly, says, you know what, school here, you're not going to want to go there. Not a good school. This was several years ago before we had kids. Just not, you're not going to want to go here. And we were fine. So then when we were getting ready to put our daughter into school, frankly, we didn't even consider Lakewood. That was not, that wasn't a thing. Because we just had heard all this stuff. It's not a good school. And so we went to the magnet or the fair that they had at Jordan, the school fair. And we went to the various, all those different schools. And we're then kind of accosted by Mr. Hopkins, thankfully. And he took us aside. He's like, you guys, and he gave us this whole spiel, his whole plan, the way it's turning around. He showed us numbers. He showed us this stuff. And, the icing on the cake was, hey, we got a dual language program. And that to me, the dual language is like a huge thing for me. I believe that all kids should have access to this, frankly. We're talking about mine specifically, and mine go to this school. So I'm really advocating for it at Lakewood. Obviously this year, we've already gotten, Mr. Hopkins moving. I'm sure our new principal is great. But, we've already got one thing, and now we're talking about moving the dual language thing, and our whole discussion with him, obviously it was not a contract, but our whole discussion was, hey, we're doing this big experiment basically to turn this school around. It's yielding results. We've gotten into this experiment. I mean, I'm not one to really put my kids into, the city science experiments. So now when we're saying, okay, psych, we're going to move it, and now I'm going to go through this whole nonsense again. If it does get pulled, because frankly, if it gets pulled, there's a huge reason. We love the community at Lakewood. We really do. But to me, the dual language is a top tier reason. The staff involved is great. I mean, the entire staff at the school has been amazing. But we moved the dual language. I mean, and I can't think that I'm the only one who's having these thoughts, right? So I don't know what it's going to do just to Lakewood in general, how many other families would look, well, shoot. Or frankly, families just getting involved in the public school systems in general are going to say, well, hey, they pulled the rug out from under people at Lakewood. What is the commitment of Durham to their public schools? So that's kind of where I'm at with it. That's all I got.
Thank you. Jesse Brannerman, Debbie Swain, and then Jennifer Tranquez. I apologize.
Good evening, and thank you guys for hearing us tonight. My name is Jessie Braverman. I have a first grader, or almost second grader in the dual language program, and a 2-year-old who will be going to Lakewood in a few years. I am also on the PTA, and I wanted to talk a little bit tonight, similarly to what everybody else is talking about. But first, I just wanted to say thank you for considering and pushing equity in our schools. I think that's really important. But I feel like some of what has gotten lost in the goal of this program is actually the equity itself. A lot of what is being shown to me, it looks like equality, that each region gets exactly the same thing. I don't think that's bad, but as we know, not all of our regions that are proposed are the same type of communities. Some need different types of help than others. So I think I would ask that we look at this in a way that we start at the 3, we start at these magnet schools, but then we also consider, that is a minimum and that it allows us to be flexible, because I think a lot of what equity is about flexibility. It's about being able to adjust to a community as that community changes, and to be able to provide services that the community needs as the community evolves. And so part of that is what our community school at Lakewood does, is we looked at what the community was, what the community wanted, what our makeup and demographic is, and those services were provided to the school. And I think it's really been shown that it has really helped all of the kids, not just the kids in the dual language, but having a community school model has helped all of the children. So I would ask for you all to look at the boundaries, and I understand, like Southwest School, that one is right on the border. I mean, literally it would not be hard to just adjust that border. And if the issue is that Southwest is called Southwest and it would be in the Southeast region, you can change the name, rather than removing a whole successful program and starting a whole new one up at a new school. Why not just keep both of them? That seems fair to me. And I would say if there are other communities that are highly, populated with Latino speakers and Latino kids, then give them Spanish speaking dual language programs. Same for if we have large Korean or, speakers that speak Farsi or, French, just let's look at the communities. Let's give them things that help them. Thank you.
You.
Hello, my name is Devjani Swainlitz. I'm a parent of a Lakewood student who's in first grade, not in the dual immersion class, but she has seen the benefits of it, and also a 2-year-old who will be coming up. So the reason that we chose to stay in Lakewood was very much because of Principal Hopkins, who has been fortunately going to Lion Farms, but then unfortunately removed from our school. And because of the ties to the community, which is a highly heavily Spanish speaking community. One of the things that I've noticed, Matt Sears can attest that I am a data nerd, and I was looking at the data of the boundaries. And one of the things that I noticed is that there's a homogenization of the people of color and the demographics. I can say that there are a lot of people who are people of color who have very different experiences. And I think we see that in the Lakewood community. And part of the homogenization of these boundaries is ignoring our Spanish speaking neighbors. And with that, I think that we should think about what our community needs, specifically Lakewood and Spanish speakers in the Lakewood community. And I don't think that taking away a dual language program from a community school is the solution as to adding more dual language programs if we want to consider equity across all of the different boundaries. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Jennifer Tranquez, Cliff Dyer, and Paul Smith.
Hi, this is my first time doing anything like this, so bear with me.
It's all right. If you can just come a little closer to that microphone,
Sure.
thank you. There-
My name's
perfect.
Jennifer Tranquez, and I am a, no worries, kindergarten parent at Easley. It is our base school. And basically, I am here tonight just to talk about consistency and stability. You know, in March of her 3-year-old preschool, everything shut down because of COVID. Last year, I was her pre-K teacher, which was wonderful for everyone involved. She started out this year in kindergarten, thankfully in person. And although in masks, she loved being back in school with her friends. She loves her school. She loves her teachers. And now they're in school without masks, and she's getting a real experience. The Easley, from what I can tell, the Easley-based district will shrink to almost nothing. We live 1.5 miles away. It will no longer be our base district. My brother, who lives basically across the street from us, whose kid is also in kindergarten with mine at Easley, will go to a different school than mine will go to. I think that what we have to focus on is with everything these kids have been through, consistency and stability are so important so that they can learn and that they can continue to thrive and continue to have something to hold on to, since their lives have just been jerked around for the past 3 years. And I just really, really would like more answers, and would really just like you guys to think about not voting until we have some of those answers, like what kids would be grandfathered in. And, you know, why think about yanking kids from schools that they're settled in after they have had so much thrown at them already? And my kid loves Easley. She loves everything about it. She gets up in the morning and she is excited to go to school. And I don't want that to change for her. For kids, routine and stability and consistency is so, so important. And I just want to be able to give that to my kid. So please think about holding off on the vote until we can get some more answers. I want my kid to be happy in school, and she is. Thank you guys very, very much.
Thank you. Cliff Dyer, Paul Smith, and Julie Lynn Borquin.
All right. Yeah, my name's Cliff Dyer. No big surprise here, but
Mr. Dyer, if you can just lift it up, there you go.
I'm another parent at Lakewood Elementary. My older kid is in kindergarten there. My younger kid will be in kindergarten next year. We tried to get on in the dual language immersion program because we'd heard so much good stuff about it. And we ended up 7th on the wait list this past year. It's been an incredibly successful program. We're now scheduled to get in next year. We were first on the wait list and one student dropped out, or is moving away rather. Which is just to say, you know, I echo everything everyone said here. I don't want to take too much time repeating things that you've already heard, but the program is really successful. A lot of people want to take part in it. And it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me that we would be reducing access to that when it's so successful. A lot of the success of Lakewood is based on the engagement that, you know, has come not just because it's a neighborhood program, but because so many people have invested so much, the teachers, the staff, the principals, all of them that we've been through. And another part of this proposal is splitting our district as well, which I understand has to happen sometimes, but for a school that has so much of its success based on the investment of the parents, we have several parents who are scheduled to be moved out of our district who have been incredibly active in our, in our volunteering, in our PTA. And I just want to make sure that we're taking all of that into account when we're making these changes. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Paul Smith. I am the parent of a kindergartner at Lakewood Elementary School. We are not in the Spanish immersion program. We're in the English program. And I'm here to ask the board both to continue the DLI program, but also to allow my neighborhood, Rockwood and Parkside, to stay districted to Lakewood. My family moved to the Rockwood neighborhood about 9 years ago, before my wife and I had kids. At first, we didn't know any families who sent their children to Lakewood. Everyone sent their kids to private schools or charter schools or magnet schools who we met in the neighborhood. We are big supporters of public education, and we did our best to support Lakewood even before we had kids. We have been extremely proud of the progress that our school has made and that our neighborhood has made, recommitting and reinvesting itself into Lakewood Elementary School. Many families in Rockwood now send their children to Lakewood Elementary School. I hear families with children who are years before kindergarten age talking now about how Lakewood is their first choice. And it is so exciting to see that transformation over the last few years. Even though on paper, Lakewood is still a Title I school with a large low-income population and test scores that aren't what people are looking for when they're Googling elementary schools on the internet, we've done the work in the community to try to get families to reinvest in the school and appreciate it for the great school that it is. The current plan, by removing Rockwood and Parkside, would undo all of that work. For better or for worse, these are conversations that take months or years with families, helping them build a relationship with the school, them get excited about it. You can't just transfer that to another school just by redrawing a line. And unfortunately, I think that all of that work is just going to disappear if in fact we are moved to a different district. So I ask you to allow us to continue investing in our neighborhood school and continue building on that success. And my concerns about that are really compounded when you look at that combined with the elimination of the DLI program. It is impossible to deny what an asset that's been to turning the school around. And if the DLI program is taken away, it would essentially be weaponized. This program that was used to strengthen a school will be weaponized into another school choice program that's simply siphoning families out of our neighborhood into magnet programs. If we're moved to another school district, I don't know how we could build meaningful momentum in our neighborhood to choose our neighborhood school when most of the families willing to make that choice already are being shipped to Southwest or have been burned by the closure of Lakewood's DLI school or have just been grandfathered into Lakewood's DLI school, even though we are now in a different district. To protect the progress we've made in our neighborhood and at our school, it's critical that Rockwood and Parkside be allowed to remain in Lakewood's district and build on the success we've had so far. Thank you.
After Ms. Borquin, right, we have Nareda Ghosh and Jenny Calderon.
Hi, thank y'all for taking the time to hear us. I'm Julie Lynn Borquin, and I have a current kindergartner at Lakewood in the dual immersion program, and he's got 2 younger siblings that are going to be coming up and following him. But I've been a teacher for 14 years, 11 which I've been here in Durham. In the public school system, and I believe in the public school system. It's something that's been always important to me that my children go to their base community school. I was shocked when I started hearing all the conversations as we were looking at, having a child of school age, at how many magnet charter programs there were. And I live in Parkside, as a lot of people have shared, Parkside, the Rockwood area. And our neighbors absolutely not sending their kids to Lakewood. They were going to all the other schools, talking pretty poorly of Lakewood. And I felt very strongly that if you've never set foot in a school, you should not have an opinion about it. And so, so I quickly scheduled a tour with Mr. Hopkins. And the minute I set foot, and he took me around the classrooms, introduced me to people, I was sold. And this is before I even knew about the dual immersion program. And I told my husband, that's where we're sending our children. And at this point, I feel like the rug has been ripped from under me, because I feel like I am such a champion for public schools. And I feel so involved now in this community. We've invested in the community. And it feels like a loss at this point, when I not only heard that we could be losing the dual immersion program, but then also now our neighborhood is not districted to Lakewood anymore. And I think that feels like the bigger blow, because everything that they've said about this community and then more. And my fear for not knowing what could possibly be in the future for my son just seems unacceptable when deciding if this is a good decision. So the way that everybody else, I like how they've said, just think about that before voting. I think more information is needed. And I think anything that could bring more communities together, I think Lakewood could be the model for that. I would love to see more schools have the community that Lakewood has, because I think that would just be good for everybody. So thank you so much for listening.
Good evening. I'm Narendra Ghosh. I too am a Lakewood parent. I have a kindergartner and a second grader in the dual language immersion program. I'm also a resident of the Rockwood neighborhood, who, like some of my fellow family members, was here for many years in the neighborhood, and talked to Principal Hopkins and decided to go even before it was finalized that there would be a dual language program. But we believe in the public schools. We believe in local schools like the ones I grew up in, and we want that for our children. 3 points I'd like to make. First, as I think is very evident from this meeting, the community at Lakewood is incredibly strong, and the staff that inspire us to be here, our kids and all the parents, is an exceptional community that's been developed here. And so to break apart that community, to move some of the neighborhoods out of the Lakewood district is very painful. And I know that redistricting is complicated. I know that how you draw one line affects how you have to draw another line. I know that there are many considerations that go into this, and there was a lot of hard work, but I don't think there was enough consideration taken into account what has happened to Lakewood, what the communities of Lakewood, and who makes up that community. Relatedly, I mean, I'm, as you can see, this community is very attentive when people ask for our input. And I've heard references that there were, I don't know, 20 or 30 meetings about this from the administration before this plan came out. And I can assure you that if there were meetings that we knew what this was about, the Lakewood community would have attended them. And this was all a bombshell news to us because that outreach was not effectively done. I looked back at my emails. I saw some rather anodyne, cryptic emails about changes to the magnet application program or policy, but no one said we're changing the neighborhood district lines. We are considering removing the dual language immersion program at Lakewood. No one told us that. And if they had, certainly we would have given our input. So I ask that certainly more time can be given for other communities to give input like we are now. Third, it is very challenging to reach Spanish speakers. We at the Lakewood community try very hard to do that. Requires a lot of effort. There are a lot. They face many challenges with their time. And I know it takes us a lot of effort. And if the district wasn't able to reach out to most of the community, I knew they weren't able to reach out to the Spanish speaking parents as well. So thank you.
Good evening. I first want to say thank you for redistricting our schools. As a former DPS teacher and current DPS parent, I can say that this is necessary and long overdue work. And I'm not going to complain about how this affects my specific family, even though I know there are a lot of families who are impacted in very significant ways, because we all have to keep in mind that there is a bigger picture here. But that said, I do have some concerns, chief of which is the speed with which this is moving. When I attended listening sessions this past fall, I heard parents expect preferences and ideas for how to move forward. And I will note what people are saying about it being geared towards the magnet program. Like, I thought it was about magnet schools. I think everybody there thought it was about magnet schools, not realizing that it would affect base schools. Parents expressed a lot of these ideas, and what we heard was that the focus of those sessions was just to talk about the background of DPS's magnet programs and some of the inequities that have grown since the 1990s, and how they might have worked back then, but now they don't. And all of that made a lot of sense to me. And so I was eager this spring to kind of attend more of those listening sessions. And I was unable to, but the two that we had, but I also am kind of surprised that after it felt like half a dozen at least listening sessions of just talking about how there are inequities, now we're sitting here with this meeting and two others, and this is, you know, on your plates to vote for soon. And I don't feel like the outreach has happened to the community to move this forward. There's just not been enough time to sit with these maps and process the information and ensure that we are getting feedback to be sure that this is what is best for Durham's children. I want to balance. I understand a lot of you expressed at the last meeting that we don't want to get into analysis paralysis. And I think all of us parents here appreciate that. We understand that you're going to make people mad. Somebody is always going to be mad with this decision, but we can go a little bit slower without waiting 30 more years to redistrict. There's a compromise here that's pretty reasonable. And so I would ask the board to just take their time, make sure that we're getting adequate feedback from the community before moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. And then I know we had a couple of speakers come in after the public, the comment sheets were ready. Come on up to the microphone. You can say your name. And if you're speaking for organization, say the name of the organization as well.
I'm not with an organization. I'm a parent, Jessica Schaefer. We are actually, I'm going to speak to all the parents here because I'm going to go the complete opposite direction of y'all. And I'm sorry, but I love that Lakewood has done such a great job. And you guys keep talking about your awesome principal that pulled you all in and did all this. There are other schools in the district that are desperate for these programs too. Like, we are talking desperate. Like, our base school is suffering greatly. Probably like right now in this last year, one of the worst in the district. Under this
Ms.
new
Schaefer,
plan,
sorry, can you come a little bit closer to the mic? There you go.
under this new plan, we would see some resources finally pumped to our schools. So I think you guys have all, you're here attesting to the fact that the dual language immersion works. The magnet program turns schools around, and you don't want to lose that. But we're saying there's still schools in the district that need it bad, desperately. And inaction at this point is not an option. Like, you have to vote. You have to vote and pass this. And we have to do something, because what's going on in our zip code right now in East Durham is not what anybody else is dealing with. Like, we have so much inequality and so much disparity. And my third grader can attest to it. Like, two different schools, the way a crow flies, not even a mile apart, and it's night and day. So any effort to equitize just all of Durham, period, or at least our district, like just go ahead. We don't care. Give East Durham our boundary lines, move forward, whatever. But this program also includes unifying the EC and pre-K services throughout the whole entire district. This doesn't just affect boundary lines. This affects the way our elementary programs are running. This is going to affect, I mean, the district faces constant issues with having to move kids to different schools because they can't meet their EC needs or this or that. This addresses all of that at the elementary level. So yes, it is going to be uncomfortable for the whole city. But right now, like, there is no, you know, there are some schools that can't even support the district around them. Like, we don't have the staff, we don't have the EC services, we didn't have anything. And, you know, so it's really hard. I mean, like, we've got a parent crying back here because everybody's talking about like, oh, I don't want to lose this school I'm at. My kid is so happy to go every day. She's bawling her eyes out because her kid, you know, it says he's sick to his stomach to go every day. We need stuff too. So I think there's two sides to every coin, and we're asking the district, we're asking all of you guys to do whatever, do something, move on it, pick a plan, redraw the lines later if you have to. If people put Lakewood out, move a line around Lakewood, but just pass it, please. Get those EC services going, get those elementary schools on track. We're talking all elementary schools would have a foreign language option. Do you know our base school still doesn't have any? Her kid just came home and said, no more specials for the rest of the year. They're not even doing recess. They're getting, kindergartners are getting computer recess twice a day. So like, we're just asking for recess. So yeah. Anyway, there's more to this bill than just redrawing the lines. And I think like, let's redraw the lines later. Let's get this passed and let's get our kids what they need.
Thank you. Was there any other folks that came in that would like to speak?
Add some variety. My kid also doesn't go to Lakewood. I have a second grader at Hillendale Elementary.
Can you tell us your name?
My name's Sarah Fuller. I have a second grader at Hillendale Elementary. I have a rising kindergartner who'll go to Hillendale next year, and I have a 3-year-old who will follow 2 years after that. I'm also an education policy researcher at UNC, so I do know that this district takes very seriously evidence and tries very hard to move forward in equitable ways, which I applaud you all for. One of the things we know about schools and based on the evidence is that moving schools is hard on kids. It's one of the reasons why 6th grade is a really difficult year for a lot of kids because of that movement. So one of my really big concerns with this plan where it is right now is that we don't know what's going to happen in terms of grandfathering and that we don't know what's happening. Yeah, one of my big concerns is we don't know what's going to happen in terms of grandfathering and we don't know what's going to happen in terms of middle and high school. So my neighborhood, American Village, is slated to move from Hillendale to Forest View. When my current second grader will be going into 5th grade, my rising kindergartner will be going into 2nd grade, and my youngest will be entering kindergarten. I have no idea what that means for my family. My 5th grader may be getting grandfathered. What about the one who would be in 2nd grade? What about the one who would be in kindergarten? And then, you know, we're being switched from northern Durham to southwest, which I know is getting a new elementary school. But what about Githens? What about River? What about Jordan? Will they have space for us, or will our children then be switched into the northern district and go to Brogden, Riverside, where they won't know students? So I would encourage you to see if you can have a whole plan that includes middle and high school as well. Because if this follows by a couple of years, we're looking at the same groups of students potentially facing this twice. And families like mine with multiple children having to deal with 2 elementary schools, 2 middle schools, 2 high schools, potentially at the same time, which very happy to see the start times moving to align with research, some of which I've done myself. And so applaud that research-based decision, but having 2 elementary schools that start at the same time with children in 2 places in different directions is going to be really hard on families. And so it'd be very helpful because as everyone's spoken about the chaos that's affected children, all the parents in this district have also had to turn on a dime multiple times. There's no way to redistrict without moving people. There just isn't. But it would be really helpful to have some predictability of what that means for our kids, not just it for 1 year, but following on.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Heidi Miles. I'm from Lakewood Elementary. I'm the dual language coordinator and the AIG teacher for K through second. I have been a very big part of creating the program. And so I've put a lot of work into it and a lot of effort. And one of the things that is a big part of my job is advocating for Hispanic families and Spanish speaking families to be a part of the program and to find out about it. One of the difficulties with that is when families register for kindergarten, they don't, if they don't speak English, a lot of times they're not aware of those registrations happening. And then therefore they're not allowed or they're not privy to the knowledge that there is a dual language program. So I spend a lot of time trying to figure out how I can reach those families. And if we're going to move to this magnet model and families have to apply well in advance, you're going to see a lack of diversity in those programs, because I'm telling you, I spend a lot of hours and time trying to reach our Hispanic population and give them this opportunity within our small community. So I just urge you to really consider how that will impact those families. And just to say to the family back here speaking about their school, I totally agree that those things need to be equitable at their school as well. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mary Smith. I'm a kindergartner at Oak Grove Elementary, and we're struggling. We need help. I'm sorry, I'm crying, but all year he's been miserable to go to school. He's never seen the gym. He's never seen the music room or the art room. He will not have any more specials for the rest of the year because they need those teachers to run the EOGs. We finally got a PTA, but it was like, it felt like we were fighting a mammoth or something just to get some communication. Thank you. With our school, I never knew what was happening. I tried to get an IEP. I tried to get him to go to a different school. Everything got turned down. They referred us back to MTSS, but never reached out. So my husband and I are researching MTSS and demanding meetings just to find out, why is he so miserable and how can we change it? And how do I have to send him back there next year? And if it doesn't have to be this program. I don't want to ruin another neighborhood's function, but we're where Lakewood was before DLI, and we need help. We need someone to talk to our community and solve a problem, because I can't. I feel like a terrible mother sending him there every day. I don't know if I can send him for these last 2 weeks, knowing that he doesn't have recess. He's 6 years old. He just has to play on a computer. And it just doesn't seem healthy. So if you could help us, please, we need it. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to, that is going to conclude our public, oh, I'm sorry. All right, you will be our last two public speakers. Thank
Okay,
you.
I was not planning on speaking at all, but my name is Blair Busick, and I have a kindergartner that goes to Oak Grove as well, who is very good friends with her sweet, sweet son, who we love so much. I have done a request for a transfer. I have been denied twice now. I have actually just sent information in to talk in front of the board and ask for, we are just completely, and actually listening to everybody talk about Lakewood is just, it's like heartbreaking, because we do not, I know nothing about really what's going on with her at school. I mean, she's happy, but she really doesn't know any better. She just kind of loves everybody. But we're trying to get a 504 plan in place for her, and no one knows anything, including the principal, including everybody. Nobody is giving me any information. Nobody's talking about it. It's very, very odd. And I know that I very much so want her to be in the public schools, but we are very, very unsure if we want her to continue at Oak Grove for first grade moving forward. So I just something needs to change. Something, it needs to be looked at. Questions need to be answered. We're very desperate. We're very, very desperate. So thank you.
So the way the public comment works, we do ask folks to comment on one thing at a time. I'm so sorry. But if this other, excuse me, if you could. Yeah, yes. Yeah, thank you. I'll just summarize that for folks who might be watching, talking about busing and how our bus drivers are currently driving all around Durham County to bring students to and from as they're going to and from different schools. And if you could state your name and then you can do your comment.
Sure. Hi, my name is Delaney Susie. I'm the parent of a second grader at Lakewood Elementary. I'm also an educator. I've taught in public schools in North Carolina and Chicago, and now I'm a teaching artist with local schools. I wanted to just share a little bit about my story. So I wrote down about how we, also I just want to say I might go over time because I have comments from a Spanish speaking mom who couldn't be here. So I just wanted to let you know that up front. So my son had a spot in a magnet school, but it was important to us for him to go to his neighborhood school. And then when there was a chance for him to be in the dual language program, we thought that was great for the school because Lakewood has 50% Latinx population. It's been proven to be a great model for Spanish speakers. It was the first year of the program, so we were a little nervous. We were told there might be some learning regressions in early elementary, but just stick through it till 5th grade and the benefits are clear for both Spanish and English speakers. And then fast forward 3 years, and despite lots of interruptions with the pandemic, my child's happy and learning in both English and Spanish. We love our school community and the teachers. And we actually made our decision about where we were going to buy our house to be in our school zone. So, anyways, it leaves me feeling anxious and with a lot of questions to know that Lakewood's dual language program might be gone, as well as we might be zoned differently. I understand that rezoning happens, but I do hope that it can be done with as few disruptions as possible. I do hope that we can get an answer about legacy policies beforehand rather than later on. And I really just think that I would love to see every neighborhood school have an opportunity to keep whatever programs already working for them and also have an opportunity to have listening sessions about what targeted needs, what programs would help them. And that's kind of my big question about this plan is what resources are being given to the neighborhood schools. Also, I think it's really important that there's more communication beyond just digital, because it's been really hard for families to understand what this proposal is about. We only had 4 days of a flyer that went home. When are we going to get paper maps to really understand these changes? I'm also wondering what other sort of forms are there going to be to hear people's voices, because it's really difficult for a lot of parents to make it here in person. So another mom from my son's class who speaks Spanish, she really wanted to be here, but she had day work in Fayetteville and she couldn't make it. So she gave me her words to share. I don't speak Spanish, but I used Google Translate when we text each other. So she says, "Estoy contenta de que mi niño esté."
Is the comments in Spanish?
I'll just say the English part.
We do have an interpreter here who can help support that.
Okay. Well, I already translated on Google Translate. So for the sake of not hearing my accent and time, I'll just say what she said. I'll just paraphrase it. She says that I'm happy. So this is Anya Ruiz, mom of a second grader at Lakewood Elementary. I am happy that my son is receiving dual language because in my house, I only speak Spanish and I'm a single mother. It has helped both him and me because without dual language, he would not have a teacher who speaks Spanish. And my child would not be able to communicate with confidence to ask questions. And all this helps both learning in English and learning in Spanish. Both things are important at the same time. This is a country where the first language is English, but there are many Hispanics who perhaps do not know how to speak English. And through their children, we are already learning to communicate with each other. Thank you for taking the time to hear from us, and I hope there's more opportunities for that.
Thank you. want to say thank you to all the parents and community members who came today for the hearing. It's really important for us to hear from folks, and so we appreciate y'all taking the time to be here. I do want to ask the administration to kind of lay out what happens next regarding timeline, and then board members, I'll give you all an opportunity to speak if you would like to add anything.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I have Mr. Palmer ready here to give us the timeline when all these plan will be implemented. Mr. Palmer.
Mr. Palmer, if you could start even before implementation to what happens after this public hearing.
Indeed, Chair. So thank you. And Dr. Mabanga, to your request, and certainly a review of the timeline for the board, I think, and as well for the public. So we have currently, and I believe our IT team has pulled up the timeline that will walk out the next couple of years. But in the interim between now and what we've discussed for a second reading, which is an agenda item for the forthcoming June 9th board meeting. Right, so that would be next Thursday. We are looking at a variety of, we have heard from the board at the last board meeting on our first reading. We have some updates that we will include in that, responding to specific questions, but in the time between now and then, we have set forth with a proposal to the Board of Education for action and for vote on June 9th, which is again, at the next work session, I should be clear. So we are talking the June 9th work session. If the IT team can pull up the multi-year timeline slide, we want to review that as well to share with you all, as well as with those in attendance and those at home, what we're talking about over the next couple of years. So there again, just to review, we have Lyons Farm Elementary School opening August of this year, 22-23. Certainly we heard this evening comments pointing towards consideration for our secondary programs, and long throughout this project, we've established that elementary or primary level of academic programs, school boundaries, and student assignment would be needed to do the secondary component, right? It's sort of the foundation of the house. And there again, the pre-K and EC regional alignments, an opportunity to look at those school by school and make small micro scale adjustments when we can bring those in to one school. You see here the finalize of student assignment rules in preparation for the 24-25 school year, the academic year of 24-25. We're anticipating that for this summer, that after we know where we're going from a vision standpoint, again, you've heard some of the need for where is the landmark, where are we intending to go, the bridge to get there as far as the implementation and phase in. We've intentionally wanted to be delicate, respectful, and thoughtful and participatory with our parents, both those in attendance this evening and those throughout Durham, right? We have 30,000 current students, and we realize across 32 elementary schools, we need to make sure there's voice and representation in those delicate decisions. For the 23-24 year, that sets us up for those lottery rules that would be in effect for the 24-25 year would be used in the January of 2024 lottery that you see here. Right? In addition, again, the pre-K and EC alignments, those small scales being as minimally disruptive for any current pre-K and EC families, and looking at redoubling on the informational campaign over the next year, right? For 24-25, we have new school boundaries in effect. And I know there's a lot of question tonight about legacy students and what happens if my student is currently enrolled, or if my student is currently enrolled and I have a younger child, right? We'll go back to this summer, the opportunity we have to shape those implementation rules with our parents, our staff, and our school leaders. We have the opening of Murray Massenburg Elementary School in 24-25. There again, that's one of the important opportunities we have. We're aware of all of the mobile classrooms throughout Southern Durham. The opening of that school will relieve severe overcrowding in a number of schools. We have the full alignment of EC and pre-K, as well as the regional access model. Again, we're looking at the dual language immersion programs and the year-round calendar programs by region. And for every school, I think you've heard tonight about the investment for all of Durham's schools. All of Durham's elementaries are great schools. What will that take? What do we need? We're looking at the global languages program being offered in every elementary school in Durham. Are STEM intertwined with the curriculum? Of course, visual and performing arts in every elementary school as well. I would point out many of our schools currently do not have the space necessary to offer those specialties in elementary school right now because of overcrowding in some of our schools. And for 24-25, we have the renovation of 6 elementary schools as a function of our capital improvement program that will give us additional seats, but also modernize those campuses. And then the district-wide, we have the International Baccalaureate program as well as the Montessori program. So we want to be thoughtful about that again, in particular because currently where Montessori is structured, we have to be thoughtful about the pre-K onboarding years and how we implement that. So this is the transition planning timeline that is, as you can see, over a 3-year horizon line. And we're listening to certainly all the comments that we've heard in the last 2 years, but those this evening as well. We thank the board and the public for their thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer, for helping us kind of map out when these changes will begin and what I think one of the things you highlighted here is what also will be happening in every school, every elementary school here. So having global languages, STEM, and arts in every one of our elementary schools across Durham. So I want to give the board members, if you all have opportunity, if you would like for any comments. Mr. Raven.
So I'm going to take a stab at this and go first because as was asked of us at the beginning is to express empathy and compassion and kind of understand why so many of you all are thankfully so vigilant in becoming advocates for the schools that you all represent. It is a balance. We've heard that, and I'm going to speak from my personal experience. What some of the family members have stated. I am a parent of 2 kids that are actually at Oak Grove Elementary School and one that will be coming there in about 4 or 5 years. We've been there since 1986 in some shape or form. And there are a lot of families in that area that have expressed they've expressed through actions their satisfaction levels with Durham Public Schools in some capacity, whether by their absence or their presence within our school systems. And I think part of what we're looking for is how can we reconcile where our gaps are as a district? How can we look at some of the challenges that we're facing and do the best job possible of being able to realign some resources? Mind you, the goal is never to take away, right? But what we've been faced with and what you've been hearing from so many parents in some ways is lack of resources, right? We've been saying this since the beginning of the school year about the Great Resignation period, right? Part of being able to have these language immersion programs deals with actually having the resources and having the staff to be able to provide what is needed and envisioning that our goal is to have as many of these strong programs at as many schools as possible. There's a challenge in that. And so I just want to just say that I know we all hear you and we're all trying to figure out what is the best approach. And I think that advocacy counts for a lot, right? Being able to hear so many parents from Lakewood advocate for what's worked best for you all in your community. And you all are essentially our eyes and ears of letting us know what it is that the community wants and what they want to advocate for. And then you hear the other side of that Eastern Durham corridor in which, you know, it's a little bit further in the county. So the resources, the access, the demographics of that community are a stark difference in some ways. And it's something that does have to be taken into consideration. And, you know, again, the reduction of access is not something that we want to advocate for. It's been, I think Mr. Sears or Mr. Lee had pointed to the comment that it's been roughly around 30 years since the last redistrict. And it's going to be tough. You know, the question is, when is the right time? Like, do you wait on the perfect plan to move forward? do you give a template of what your expectation of that plan is and take the feedback from the community to figure out how we can make the adjustments so that we can move this forward? And understanding that every single student is important to us within a district, and understanding even from the administration's perspective that there's a science to being able to determine this is what we would like to do for our elementary schools. And if this is successful, this is something that we could build upon so that it can then roll over to our middle schools and then to our high schools. I mean, we have trained professionals that are great at what they do, right? But we do value your input, and we do want to make sure that it's accounted for. So that's all I can say. It's just a tough, and I'm appreciative that so many people showed up to kind of express their thoughts on it. So thank you.
Well, I definitely want to thank everyone in the community for coming out today, and for the many comments that we've had coming in online, and I'm confident we're going to get more in the days and weeks ahead. I want to thank our administration, who know this work so well that I know they could answer every question on the spot if we had another couple of hours, and who have worked hard to try to prevent the number of questions that we've had tonight, which is just impossible to do because we can't address all 33,000 students' families in one engaged.dpsnc website. That said, my initial reflections, both in talking with the community and in listening tonight, are I do think there are some steps administration that we can actively take if you're willing to do so. I am interested in what response we would get if schools did send home paper maps that said, this is what it looks like. We do it for lots of other announcements, but I'm not confident we've reached every corner despite the 28 public engagements that we did in 2021. And some of the comments, not only tonight, but that we've gotten by email have reflected that. I am, as everyone is, interested in getting more meat on the bones in terms of the legacy policy. I think there's two ends of the spectrum, and obviously we'll probably land somewhere in the middle, but there's no legacy policy, which is it's just 2024, 25. And on the other end, it's everybody that's connected to everybody is legacied, and we're dealing with it for a decade or more, but we have far fewer speed bumps and disruptions along the way. So I know we'll land somewhere, but I am eager to get the meat on the bones. And I do wonder if we need more meat before we approve the lines. That's just where I am tonight. Secondly, and I have 3 points. I don't often, in fact, I'm kind of proud of not talking personally about my experience as a board member, since we do represent everybody. But I can't, as a member of the Lakewood community, I can't not bring that up tonight. So, not only is my son a part of the DLI program, but my two older children are in 3rd and now in 6th grade, but went through Lakewood for 6 years, and we have a lot invested in that community. There's a lot of good that we heard tonight. And I want to ensure that the good you're hearing has some perspective on it when it comes to race and performance. Lakewood Elementary is not a high-performing school in the way that Chapel Hill is a high-performing district, meaning that there is less poverty in Chapel Hill, there is more white population in Chapel Hill, and they essentially hide their performance gaps through their demographics. Lakewood did not move from an F school to a C school because it got whiter. We're at about 10% white students. That is up from 2% 6 or 7 years ago. But you heard within the comment tonight about the reasons. You heard about staff over and over again. And we know good staff don't stick around for poor leaders. You heard about the importance of leadership, the leaders that you've built, and the leaders that you've picked to succeed the previous administrators. And you've seen what a community reinvesting in the school, not in numbers to take it over, but investing time, energy, and support has done for a school. And that cuts both ways. While I'm incredibly proud of that for this one of our 32 elementary schools, we did some of that based on a model of EK Poe 10 years before. And so while there may be pain in redistricting, and while the Lakewood map may change, I'm still very hopeful that this type of energy in the community is possible for schools like CC Spalding, for schools like Hill and Dare, for schools where anybody wants to actually care about public schools and invest instead of divesting. And so I think that's really important. Finally, my current thinking for the administration, this won't be a surprise, Dr. Hardy and I talked about this last week, is I do think our community deserves to know more specifics about the cost of some of these programs. Montessori, I'm confident I can say, is expensive. DLI, I think there's a debate. We do pay placement agencies for staff. I know we pay a premium on staff, but I don't think the premium is that high in the grand scheme of things. And then we also are entertaining the notion around, what are the other ways that we can get some of those teachers to perhaps stay longer than their initial assignment. So I'm very interested in perhaps setting a benchmark for, if the native speaking Spanish population is X, best practice is DLI, not necessarily looking at it as a magnet proposal. So I haven't looked at the numbers in a while, but Holt Elementary used to be our highest Latinx school at 55%. Lakewood was number 2 or 3. I think Eastway was up there as well. Oak Grove is 48. Merrick Moore, you've identified Merrick Moore as one of the possible DLI schools, but that also means some of those seats aren't going to that community. They're also going to magnet students. So I'm very interested in hearing more from the administration about what we can do with DLI as a base practice for high Spanish speaking schools, not as some special carve out because parents are noisy about it. So.
May I just quick response here? We have our board retreat coming up. I've been working with my team as far as the cost of all these expensive programs that we're putting up there. So it's going to be August 3rd that will be bringing you the cost of all these programming that we will be bringing for the district. So give us a little bit of time here, about a month or two, to work with our finance team and our operation team to be able to bring those numbers. That's our plan.
Any other? Ms. Valladares?
I want to thank all the parents, the community that has come out and shared input, and the administration that has worked, on developing this plan. Last time at the last board meeting, that was one of the questions in terms of demographics, and the DPS's demographics looking very different from community demographics in many ways, and how to reconcile that. What I am hearing is definitely something that is very hopeful. It's about the strength of a community. It's about acknowledging that each of our children takes part in the learning process. This is definitely not just going one way. This is our children being able to learn from one another, peer learning, which is definitely a value. And increasing these programs, I think, is something that I have always supported. Bilingualism, multiculturalism, it's something that is very represented in our community. And so I'm very grateful that the plan includes languages, STEM, and art, But I do think there's something different in terms of languages versus an immersion program or DLI. It's a full package. It's the same thing we'll encounter in high schools when we talk about an IB program versus, a program that has any of those elements. And so I'd love for us to continue this conversation and definitely thank you, Dr. Mubenga, for your leadership and telling us that at the board retreat, we'll hear more about cost, because there is an ROI with any of these things. Where are we putting our investments? We've done decisions before where we've considered programs like New Tech becoming, being able to shift some programs around. And I think that, the community has definitely spoken about what it values the most. And I think anything that gives our kids the upper hand and serves as an equalizer, serves as, where our kids can all show up in the ways that they can, learn from one another, and not have populations that are always being seen as with deficiencies. I mean, there's strengths in language, there's strengths in culture, there's strengths in demographics that are growing and supporting DPS, and have continued to invest in DPS. And so I'm so grateful for this and look forward to hearing a little more. I also trust that our team, our administrators, they have been very meticulous with this process. It is extensive. We have sat through call after call. We have seen a lot of detail that goes into this and really like intentionality behind this. And so I just want to applaud our team because they're doing the impossible, right? In terms of like trying to incorporate as much and definitely you're finding that, there's some compromises along the way. So we will continue to have these conversations. Thank you for your engagement. Thank you for your emails. We have gotten a lot of emails about this as well. We hear you on high schools, middle school and high schools, and we do know that this is a work in progress and there's alignment. There's a lot of intentionality in terms of aligning these programs so that a child starts in a particular focus and they can carry that focus out. And, I sit here as a product of DPS, with an IB program. And so I know that a lot of our students will be able to benefit from this. So thank you for your engagement. Keep reaching out and we will definitely have the conversations about how to incorporate and how to best serve you. Thank you.
Ms. Dyer.
Thank you all. I want to thank everyone that took the time to come out tonight. And I want to thank those that are watching online. This feels like one of the first Durham meetings we've had in person in a long time, and it is great to have you actually in space with us. It's great for you to hear from each other as well, both the excitement about a school that Lakewood that people didn't used to be excited about. And I will shout out Mr. Sears for a lot of work that went in with his family and others in y'all's neighborhood, building excitement for that school. So it didn't happen overnight. And then you all hear each other, you hear the pain out in East Durham. You hear the shared equity values that came to this community when we did merger 30 years ago. If you've been watching our meetings long enough, you know that several of us were fighting for the money for these two elementary schools in South Durham for the 2016 bond. So we would have had them a long time ago because this crowding and these trailers need to go away. We want them off of all of our campuses. I am so glad that Dr. Mubenga has brought excellent planning staff to actually help lead us through this vision. We didn't have that talent before, and I've been here a long time. We didn't have the ability to just look at the micro level of these maps. I do agree, like I said before, paper needs to go out to everybody in English and Spanish and let them know, because this is the most hectic time of the academic year for our families. We don't want to build something that folks don't want. We don't want to dream something that folks won't come to. It's not a field of dreams game we're playing. We need to do this with our community. I would actually hope, and this is summer and it's the worst time to suggest it, but I would hope we could tap the brakes a little and have one in-person meeting in each of these regions. Like we go out in East Durham and we say, by the way, come out here and this is what we're thinking of doing here. Tell us whether this is what y'all want. Are we doing it in the right places? Are we putting dual language where folks will come? If we do IB, will folks come? We don't want to look at it 2 years from now and say, oops, that's not the intention at all. So I hope we have the time to actually give it a little bit more and to keep back and forth with you all a lot. We'll keep reading your emails. We'll take your phone calls. We're out and available to meet with folks. But I mean, these are really, really complex visioning conversations. And I hope we'll give it a little bit more time to get it right as we can. And then I hope you all will trust us that we're not going to try to totally disrupt families. That's never been the work of this board. And at the same time, y'all all have siblings coming. You have 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds, and there will be some stress and some change for some families. And we're going to need y'all to come with us as we grow together, because we've always envisioned this as a growing together plan. Not perfect, but not like some other communities around here that have done that's been so messy and so disruptive to families. That is not our goal. That is not a Durham value at all. So I hope we'll give y'all some more time to keep sharing with us what's right about it, what we can make better. But thank you all so much for all the feedback, and keep it coming.
Mr. Lee?
I'll also thank the parents for coming out and expressing your concerns and your passions about, Lakewood. I was there when we were fighting against the state. I was, in the front lines and battling and meeting with the state, and we had that victory. School reassignment is inevitable. It is probably 25 years too late. We hadn't, it's been 1992, and the districts that we had then, except for a couple of new schools and boundaries and so forth. I don't think this can wait. I don't think it can wait. We've been dealing with overcrowding in South Durham and West Durham for a long time. And anytime any line is moved, there's going to be discomfort. We moved the line slightly for Parkwood to ease some of the pressure off of Creekside. And we have meeting after meeting, town halls, in the schools, both schools. And even then, we couldn't speak to every single family. And we were accused of not communicating. I went to a lot of those meetings. There were a lot of parents, there were a lot of students. I'm not here to say that I'm not here to say that we didn't communicate the way we should. I think we put it out as best we could. We had robocalls for meetings, we had town halls, we had feedback, we had over quite a period of time. I heard equity a lot tonight. But equity is an entire movement. It's not you can't do equity and say, just don't touch mine. Don't, oh, I love the changes for the district, but we can't touch, what would make my family uncomfortable. We can't do that, right? If we're really looking to expand programs through other places, if there's an area that has 2 dual language and immersion programs, well, we're going to have to consolidate one and possibly move one of them to another area that doesn't have access to that. We were asked to approach this with empathy and care, and everything that we do as a board, I feel the first thing we do is we approach it. We approach our decisions with that. Most of us are parents. I'm a parent of 3 in DPS. But I ask those who ask us to govern with empathy to consider this with empathy. We have parents who are here that are saying, you know, we don't have the access that some people in our district do. And I absolutely agree with that. The reason I'm so excited about this program is there are so many programs that we have year-round, Montessori, dual language, you know, IB, that we have so many of those programs that are in one or two schools. Whereas with this program, now it's spread out around the district. And we've increased these programs across our district. We now are allowing not just a bunch of, you know, applications to one school or two schools from all over the district. The schools that you can apply to get to these same programs are fairly close to you. They're in your area. That someone equated it to equality. I see it a little bit differently. I'm just asking that, I'm here to advocate to say, regardless of how many more meetings we have in the different districts or the different schools, lines are going to change. Programs are going to change. Sandy Ridge, I believe, I think they lose their magnet status and become a neighborhood school. My kids go to Sandy Ridge. We can, each meeting or each month that we push, that pushes implementation even further down. And some of our schools can't wait any longer for, you know, the resources we're trying to, well, not schools, students. It's not about the schools, it's about the students. Some of our students can't wait any further to have access to programs like this. I've been to Lakewood a bunch of times this year with Miss Parker, with the different programs she has. I'm a big supporter of Lakewood, huge supporter of Mr. Hopkins, and I understand the changes. Since I've been on the board, Lakewood has been kind of one of my places because of the challenges we had some years ago. And I understand that. I understand the transition that it had. But we have to, as a Lakewood family and as a DPS family, we have to think bigger than just our building. We have to think bigger than just our families. We as board members, we don't have the luxury of saying what's best for my child. We have to say what's best for our district. School times, somebody brought up school times. School times, the first time we did it, did not work out well for me and my family. But I voted for it, even though it was a big hurt. I fully believe in this program. I believe in the meticulous work that our administration has put in to try to increase access to these programs across our district. And the longer we wait, the longer we have to put this off. If we're into December or January before the next board votes on this, that means implementation is not going to happen to 2025, 26 of the actual full, the full program. That's pushing out. I ask that we go ahead, put this in motion. We have processes for individual concerns and individual students. We have student transfer appeals. We did, each time we move the lines, we have transfer appeals back to their schools. Look, we were in school for this long. We want to finish there. We have processes for that. we can't hold up the implementation of this for individual school assignments. We go through the transfer appeals, the transfer process, let that shake out where it is, and we continue moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lewis.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, I'd just like to thank our administration for just your leadership in pulling together this plan and answering the emails. And I see some of the answers come through, 10, 12 in-depth questions and very thoughtful answers and responsive to the community. So just thank you for that, and thank you for being here and listening. This is really important to me to hear from the community, to hear all the parents who've come out tonight. I'm deeply grateful. As I heard your stories, I identify with so many, especially the ones who have a child in first grade, pre-K, and one on the hip. That was me 8 years ago. And that's when I began coming to these meetings because of inequities in the zoning, in the priority zones, in access, and what was important to me and my family, our values, and then also to the community as a whole. So to hear you all come forth and share what your needs are, what your concerns are, what your values are in equity in Durham is truly appreciated. I would share that being on the board, having access to the information across our 32 elementary schools has definitely lended a broader perspective for me. And what thing that has not changed is a deep desire for academic growth for every student in our district, for those type of opportunities. And I often have conversation with my colleagues here as far as what promotes that type of growth. Is it strong programs, strong leadership? And as everyone talked about Mr. Hopkins and the decision to go to Lions Farm, I know he's taking that same energy over there and recruiting parents and building up that school because that's who he is and the strong leadership that he provides. And some of the comments that you all made as parents made me curious. If the zoning is changing and there's a value for your community schools, for your neighborhood school, what neighborhood school will you be going to in turn? And what would that energy look like there? Don't yell at me. I'm just curious to know just how we can continue this energy throughout Durham. As these are such legitimate concerns. One in fifth grade, one in first grade. Will I be in 2 elementary schools? I do also want to have more information around what the grandfathering can look like. Although I do feel like that would slow things down a bit. And I don't want to be in 25, 26 making changes. But even if we had some hypotheticals of what that could look like, what some options can be. And one of the things that I'm mindful of also being fiscally responsible is what does transportation look like when you're making these grandfathering rules? And another thing that I'm very cautious of is what got us here in the first place. A rule here, a rule here, a rule here that created the inequities that continue to have 52 rules for 52 schools. So those are some things that I do take caution around. I am appreciative of the year-round options being increased, the Montessori options being increased. Children learn differently in different spaces with different types of programming as well. We know there's the prevention of the summer slide when we have more year-round opportunities. We know with Montessori and be able to choose and learn and grow at your own pace and multi-age classroom is important for kids as well as our dual language enrollment and immersion, our dual immersion. So I am curious. I am thankful of the collaboration that's happening for these conversations. I I also know that when parents are engaged, students' academic success increases 4 times over. And as you parents are showing up here in engagement, please don't hear me wrong, shows up differently for different people. Just because another parent may not be here does not mean that they're not engaged. But we do know that engagement looks different for different families. But when that happens, that's where we see academic success. Strong programming, strong leadership, and engaged families. That's what's coming out of this community, and I know we're all going to be better for it. I don't think that we can ever make everybody happy, but I can just tell you my position and my values and where I stand. And this board, we have very similar values. The difference is where do we lay those priorities and what comes first, second, and third. But as long as we keep our eyes on the North Star and consider, and maybe this is me imposing my value, academic growth for all of our students being the priority for what's best across this district, getting the information, asking the questions, being creative, thinking outside the box, I think that we will get on this journey where we need to be together. And I look forward to continued partnership. Please reach out to me. Let's have more conversation. These are the things that I look forward to. I learned a lot from the things that you have brought. And I have some concerns as well, and I'm happy to continue the conversation. So thank you.
Thank you, board members, for your comments, and administration for giving us that timeline again, and all the families who came out tonight. As I listened, I also, took a lot of your concerns and questions that we need to consider, but also just can't help but be proud of the community that's been built here in Durham, and the investment that was shared from everyone about how they want to invest in their public schools. I think the initiative is called Growing Together. And when I think about growing, there's often growing pains. And this might be a little bit of some of that as we stretch ourselves and we grow outside of the things that we become familiar with, but we know that that's going to lead to better outcomes for all students across Durham. I think I do have questions for the administration, who has meticulously worked on this for years. And so I just want to say again, thank you and appreciate your gratitude. For us to consider if there's a difference between the June 9th meeting and June 23rd. I'm sure y'all will probably tell me there is, but in that 2-week period, does that give us more time for some community engagement? I think I would like to see some paper maps and conversations with community, and I will look at our board too to say, we all have districts around Durham, we all have networks and community around Durham. How can we also support our administration in sharing this information with our networks and with our community? That's a part of our responsibility as well. There's lots of resources online, but I think the things that were shared around Spanish-speaking families cannot add comments. Like, we need to make sure we fix that so we can be engaging with folks all across our community. And I think we know what we saw today is that there's some things we'll learn today and some things we'll learn future as we go into middle and high school. In our next presentation, administration, I know we talked about at our last meeting that you all put a group together to think about what is grandfathering or legacy and those rules. And I would love if we could get a little more about what that process will look like in our next meeting, because I think that'll be important for families to hear. My brain is like going into the details, but that's not the purpose. Was to start here, and then we can get into the details about what this looks like for every family. But we also hear loud and clear that families have needs, that schools have needs, and we need to make sure that we're addressing those. So I appreciate, again, all of you all for coming out tonight. I think if there's no other comments or questions, Dr. Mavinga, anything from you? We will now adjourn. Yes.
Just a comment that we get engagement in multiple languages. So thank you to the parents who just write us in Spanish. And I think Nicole, thank you so much, Nicole, who's, just on top of it all the time. And so there's no language restriction sending emails to us, English, Spanish, any language. We have to figure it out. We're here to serve all our families in any language that they want to engage us. Thank you.
We do have simultaneous interpretation going on for our families who are listening in. So that's for Spanish and any of the other languages that we have present in DPS. So thank you all for joining us tonight. We are now adjourned.